Hello, hi, my name's Ellen Lefley and I'm one of the lawyers at Justice. Thank you so much for your interest and your support of Justice, and I'm really grateful to be able to speak to you today. Um, my, I'll firstly talk a little bit about my background and my journey to Justice, and then I'll move on to Justice at the moment, why I'm so proud to work there, what we've been working on recently, and what we're going to be working on in the future. So my background is as a barrister. I practiced a common law. I had a common law practice, and I worked in the Northeast actually. I did my pupillage, and I didn't do a law degree. I did an English degree actually, and then I did the GDL and the bar course alongside lots of work experience. And I got pupillage in the Northeast and practiced for a couple of years. I realised that there were deficiencies in the justice system, as there are in all systems. But what I realised was that I was interested in solving those systematic and systemic problems, and thought that with my practical experience and with that real interest and drive, that perhaps I should have a look into doing some more policy work rather than solely deciding to practice as a barrister for the next 40 years. So I looked into doing a master's because I wanted more of a human rights informed approach to how procedure can be better and rights can be better protected within it. And I did a master's before, very luckily, getting the job at Justice as one of the small group of lawyers within the legal team. I'm very proud to work at Justice, and actually I did watch the other video that you're going to see as well, which gives a history of Justice's now 63 years and the footprint that it's left on the justice system. You'll see from that why I almost didn't apply for the job, which is another thing. Imposter syndrome alert. Always apply for the job. But anyway, that's a whole other talk. But I'm so proud to work for Justice because of that footprint, and because there are so many institutions within our justice system in the UK that we actually take for granted. For example, the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the idea that there's an acknowledgement that sometimes the courts do get it wrong in criminal cases, and there's a publicly funded body that looks at that. We take that for granted, but actually that was a recommendation in a Justice report. And the same can be said for the Ombudsman Service, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, and the CPS as a united prosecuting service, as opposed to individual local police stations prosecuting, police forces prosecuting in their areas. So there's quite the history of impact, but that only spurs us all on, and as I said, makes us so proud to work for Justice and continue to do that work. The focus of Justice was, and still is, making the justice system fairer, more accessible and more efficient. And that always focuses on the experience of the most vulnerable in our society. Each of our working parties, and that's our main way of working, is through working parties, which is a group of experts who will consider an area of the legal system, look at its processes, look at its deficiencies, and look at ways in which it can improve. Our working parties do that always putting themselves in the shoes of that vulnerable person. And indeed, all of our recent working parties have included consultation with people who have lived experience. I can tell you about a few of those working parties now. Our most recent publication was called When Things Go Wrong, and that looked at inquests and inquiries. So from the Hillsborough disaster to the Bloody Sunday inquiry, all the way up to the Grenfell inquiry, looking at how the justice system responds to catastrophic events or when people are harmed over a number of years due to systematic failure. It looked at the coherence of that response and the way people are treated. That included consultation with those with lived experience. Also, our challenging school exclusions, we spoke to excluded children. So those views and voices are central because they're the people we're trying to improve the systems for. Previous reports are getting traction, have been getting traction, and continuing to get traction. And that's the other point that I wanted to make, is that when we write reports, they don't simply go on the shelf. So the other part of our work, we do work on the working parties, we do research for those groups of experts, and we draft the reports. But after the launch, we work with government, we work with the judiciary, we work and with other third sector organisations to implement the recommendations, to make sure that the change that we say needs to happen is heard and hopefully is enacted, or rather is followed. It might not need primary legislation. So, for example, I've been working on the Immigration and Asylum Appeals report, which came out in 2018 and made a vast array of recommendations about how the appeals process for after a Home Office decision is no, the appeals process through the tribunals to review that decision. Our recommendations of making tribunal caseworkers more their role being more within the process, of implementing a mandatory Home Office review stage so that they have to have a look at all the evidence again and check whether they got it wrong before it goes to the tribunal. And our recommendation that there should be more communication between the regulators. All of those things are actually happening, and it's wonderful to see them really bear fruition and to see the recommendations of the experts that Justice has collected and curated, to see that real change happening. But whilst we are seeing change that we've recommended, there is so much more work to do. We've got some current reports which are going to come out soon. Our racial disparity in youth justice report has been working for a year and is due to report very soon. And obviously the issues that picks up have only been highlighted by the Black Lives Matter movement this year. Again, the seriousness and the urgency of the issues within our benefits work, which we'll report next year, has only been enhanced by the coronavirus pandemic, which has completely changed the demographic of people, the number of people relying on the benefits system. We also don't just work to our own timetable. We respond to consultations and briefings. We have briefed on a vast array of things this year and continue to do so. So coronavirus, domestic abuse, extradition. Currently we're briefing on the Overseas Operations Bill and the fact that there are arrangements for the commission of criminal offences for police informants within another bill that we are briefing about. We also respond to government consultations. There is a planned Royal Commission into Criminal Justice, which we will respond to, and we are ready to respond to. And we're also very grateful to Lord Dyson, who is leading our response to the independent review of administrative law, a very important review into judicial review, which I'm sure if you're on the legal Twitter sphere, you'll have come across. So in terms of justice in the future, where are we going? Well, you may have seen it's on the homepage of our website. We staged to our knowledge, the world's first virtual mock jury trial. And we are looking at the future of courts during and post-COVID. And we'll continue to do that. We have experience in looking into court architecture in our report, What is a Court? And we also reported on digital exclusion in our Preventing Digital Exclusion from Online Justice report. So we know that digitisation is not something that was created by COVID, that digitisation in the courts has happened for a long time, and it probably won't go away. It most certainly won't go away if a cure to COVID is found. Remote justice is probably here to stay, and it needs careful consideration of what processes can enhance access to justice and what processes really can't, and what will be, in fact, an obstruction to justice being done in certain circumstances, considering vulnerability and considering the proper meting out of justice processes. So we're going to continue to look at that. We are also doing some work in post-conviction decision-making, which will be headed up by my criminal colleague over the next year or so, and I'll be heading up a family justice working party looking at private law children processes. They're the ones where the local authority isn't involved, and it's usually between two parents. There's no legal aid really for that anymore unless domestic abuse is involved. So we're going to be looking at ensuring that the process is made for people without lawyers rather than designed around those with lawyers. Tying all of this together, justice is going to be continuing to look at the most vulnerable in some of the most difficult circumstances, that being COVID and its after effects. I think the one thing I would like to kind of leave you with is that we are just constantly trying to make sure that legal rights and responsibilities don't just exist in theory, because legal rights are completely undermined if there aren't practical means of enforcing them, or if those practical means of enforcing them exclude people through unfair reasons because of their vulnerabilities, because of their means, and because of their being without a lawyer. We value so much our membership. This is the thing that I wanted to leave it on. Many of the projects that I've mentioned, and I haven't been able to mention them all, but so many of the projects that I've mentioned, the ideas for them have come from the Justice membership. They are the lifeblood of the organisation, and the student membership is a huge and valued part of that. We will continue to respond to government, brief Parliament, convene working parties in criminal, civil, family and administrative law, all with a focus on ensuring rule of law is retained within processes and ensuring that those processes protect people's rights. And we thank you so much for your support. Thank you.